If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Lisa, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 337 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for what's sure to be an episode full of gems and jewels. My guest today is none other than Geri Jewell. That's right, cousin Geri from Facts of Life. You loved her in that, Deadwood, and so much more. And we're diving in deep. That's coming up in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, last week, Lynn Moody joined me. We talked soap, roots, and so much more, and a heartwarming story of how she reunited with her daughter after 50 years. Do not miss that episode. But right now, do not miss my conversation with Geri Jewell. We talk about her new book, Geri's Jewels and Gems. I also dived into her memoir, I'm Walking as Straight as I Can. So much Geri Jewell goodness coming at you right now. All right, everyone, I'm excited to introduce my next guest. Actress, stand-up comedian, motivational speaker, author of I'm Walking as Straight as I Can and the brand new Geri's Jewels and Gems. You loved her on Facts of Life and Deadwood. Everybody put your hands together for Geri Jewell. Hey, Geri, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm so excited to have, it's like when I get to talk to people that I watched on TV growing up. I mean, cousin Geri on the Facts of Life, which was I love that show. So I'm excited.
Thank you.
You have a fascinating background and like so much to talk about. But I'd love to talk about stand-up comedy. I'm a stand-up comic. I'm in Michigan. I've done it for 20 years or so. I'm not famous or anything, but I do my thing.
Oh, so you've done stand-up?
Yeah. I got paid to do it even.
Okay, what do you want to know?
I'd love to hear your story, like when you were younger and you wanted to get into show business. I know you were inspired by Carol Burnett. I know then you started doing stand-up comedy. I'd love to hear just kind of like the path. Like when did you realize you were hilarious?
That I was funny?
Yeah. When did you realize you were funny? Like I can be like, when did you realize you could be funny for a living?
I think I always had a sense of humor, and I got that from my family. I mean, my family always had a sense of humor. I remember when I was learning how to walk, and if I fell down, you know how mothers go and grab their child? Oh, are you okay? Not my mom. My mom would look at me, I'd be bawling, and she'd look at me and she said, "Was that trip necessary? Really, Geri?" And I grew up with that kind of sense of humor. I had two older brothers who had a sense of humor. My younger sister who came along had a sense of humor.
So you guys were just always laughing. When did you decide this is something you want to pursue and have it be your thing?
Well, I never wanted to be a stand-up comic. Never. I didn't even have idols in stand-up comedy. I wanted to be an actress, comedic actress, a writer. But at that time, stand-up was open to me, with a door open, so I went through it. And it ended up being, the rest is history. I started doing stand-up comedy in 1978 at the Comedy Store in Hollywood. And the only reason I got into it was because I went to college with a friend of mine, Alex Valdez, who was blind. And this was my third year in college. Yeah, it was my third year in college. I know it was a 2-year college, but I was there for Okay. So, he said, I was in the disabled services department with him, and I was really depressed because I had flunked algebra for the third time. I was flunking anatomy and physiology, and I was like, oh God, I have to pass these classes to graduate. And Alex said, well, what do you really want to do? I get the feeling you don't really want to do this. Well, I don't. I want to go into show business. I want to be an actress. I want to be a comedian. And he said, well, why don't you do what I do? Well, what do you do? Well, I go to the comedy store every week and tell blind jokes. And I said, well, Alex, that may work for you, but I can see perfectly fine. And he said, no, dinky face. He always used to call me Dinky Face. That was his nickname for me. Dinky Face, you're going to tell cerebral palsy jokes. So that he got me into it. I blame him. I credit him. He got me into it.
I was reading your autobiography.
Yeah.
And you were talking about being at the Comedy Store and Mitzi and like going on stage and killing the first time, but then bombing shortly afterwards.
Yeah, the following week I bombed. I was devastated. I was heartbroken. I'm running down Sunset Boulevard to my car, and Alex is running after me. If you can imagine, a person who is blind chasing someone with cerebral down Sunset Boulevard.
Jerry, you're killing me.
It must have been quite a sight. And he said, Jerry, stop. And I said, I don't ever want to do this again. Why? Because I bombed. And he said, so what? Every comedian bombs, and if they say they didn't, they're lying.
That's true. That's true. Well, I remember it reminded me of when I was starting out, and the first couple times I did stand-up comedy, killed it. I crushed it. And then like the third time, literally the third time I get up there, I couldn't buy a laugh. My wife was in the audience and she came up to me afterwards and she goes, are you okay? Because if I was you, I'd be crying right now.
You know what's interesting? I remember a gig, and I don't even think I wrote about it in my book. It was at not the White House, although I performed there too. But it was a comedy club called the White House in Long Island. I don't even know if it exists anymore. And I got up on stage, and my cousins and my aunt and uncle were there. They came to see me, which was mortifying because not one line went over, and the audience was they were throwing their candles on the stage at me. And somebody yelled, what mental institution did they let you out of? And I was so mortified. I got off the stage and, well, I guess I have to leave. And everybody applauded that I was leaving. And the next thing I know, my cousin Mary took me to a bar so I could have a drink. And I was so devastated. And I'm drinking, I think it was a white wine. And I didn't drink. So one glass would just send me over the moon. And everybody was staring at me. And I jumped off the chair and I said, I'm not drunk. I had cerebral palsy. And my cousin Mary said, will you shut up? You're drunk. I was mortified. And it was because the audience would not open to someone like me. They just would not accept me that night.
I think we all have those nights where like you get up there and I remember doing 2 shows back to back once. In the first show, you'd think I was the funniest, greatest comedian in the history of the world. And then 2 hours later, I'm doing the show again. And I swear to God, the whole time I'm thinking, am I accidentally speaking Spanish? Because nobody is reacting to me at all. And it was just so amazing. You guys, you should have been here 2 hours ago.
Yeah, Yes, I know. I experienced that sometimes in Vegas because whenever I was booked in Vegas, they had me do, I think it was 4 shows a night, one right after another. And wow, it's a lot of work to do that. And you do the same show you did the first time, but not everybody, everybody laughs in a different way. Everybody has a different sense of humor. You're not going to humor everybody. In fact, as a comedian, I guarantee you will offend at least one person every time you.
Yeah, everybody takes things slightly different, and it's hard. I've never done more than 2 shows back to back, but in Vegas, somebody once told me when you're doing 3 or 4 shows in a row, tell me if this is accurate. You have to do the exact same thing every time, or your brain starts to play tricks on you of did I do this already or didn't I do this already type things. And it was like, I've never experienced it. To go back to the original story where you killed and then you bombed shortly after, which is what I experienced too. And then everyone said to me, they're like, that's what happens when you do stand-up comedy, because that's when you have to then make that mental shift, because you all of a sudden you're trying for the laugh, not, you know what I mean? There's like your delivery does change because the laughs are going to come and you don't deliver it exactly the same way. And then you have to readjust yourself.
Exactly, you do. Absolutely. It's a skill. People think that stand-up comedy is just go up and tell jokes. It's more than that. It's timing, it's skill, it's knowing your audience. If you don't know who your audience is, you could be in big trouble.
The best advice I ever got was I was working with somebody. They said, Jeff, you got great material, but you're missing the pauses. You're not pausing. He goes, I can't tell you where to pause. All I can tell you is they're there and you have to find them.
Absolutely.
And when I did, and then became like a master of that, and you realize how powerful a pause can be, then it was like, every time I would bump into the guy and he would see me, he goes, yeah, you owe me big time, buddy. Oh, man. So when you were coming up and doing comedy, the Comedy Store, you were doing Comedy Store, Improv, you were kind of, I don't want to say breaking the rules, but that wasn't the norm, right? Normally one would pick a path, one of those places, and then that was kind of your place.
Yeah, you were supposed to do one or the other. I mean, Mr. Shore and Bud Friedman were competing, and you weren't allowed to do both clubs. But the problem was I wasn't getting hardly any work. So I cheated. I did both clubs, and I took a risk. I don't think it hurt me in the long run.
No, it turned out okay. Who else was coming up when you were coming up in the world of comedy?
Oh, God. Jerry Seinfeld, Roseanne Barr. God, there's so many. It was the 70s. I can't think right now.
Oh, but that's a good list right there. And then in your book, you talked about living in Robert Schimmel's closet.
Yes, I did. Well, he needed a roommate. So originally I had a bedroom and I was renting from him. And then another comedian needed a roommate, needed a place to stay. So he was sleeping on the sofa every night. But he was bringing dates home every night on the sofa. And so I decided, I'm going to give him the bedroom. It's your bedroom. You don't have to give it. No, I'll take the closet. And you're serious? Yeah, I'm serious. I bought a mattress that fit in the closet, and it was one of those closets with a staircase above me. So the ceiling got lower and lower as the stairs got lower and lower. And one day, and I was renting that closet for $100 a month, mind you. And I loved my little closet. And then one morning we were late for our rent. Okay, we were late for our rent many mornings. But the landlord came knocking on the door Saturday morning looking for the rent. And Bob answered the door and he said, "You're late on your rent, Schimmel, and I need it now." So he goes down the hall and gets Raul's check, and he gets his own check, and he hands it to him. And he said, "You're short $100." And I said, "Yeah, well, I need $100 more right now." So the landlord is sitting on the sofa, and the closet is ready to crash from the sofa. And Bob knocks on the closet door, and he says, "Jerry, are you decent? Because the landlord's here, and he wants his $100 rent. Can you write a check out for $100?" And without even opening the door, I slid the check under the door. And the landlord looked at Bob and said, "You know what? I'm not even going to ask." He got a lot of flack from the comedians for renting me a closet. And he kept telling everybody it was my idea, and it was. He didn't. It wasn't his idea.
Oh, that is really funny. When was your first national TV gig? You told an interesting story, and it was interesting that you shared it in the book, because about accidentally or using Bob Nelson's Q-tip joke and then becoming famous with it. I was.
Oh my! You did read my book.
I loved it. I really did. It was really good.
I met Bob Nelson in New York, and I think I had a little crush on him. And he did all these impressions. He did one impression of a Q-tip where he put a white fluff ball on his head. And I thought, now this is an impression I can do. He won't know. It's LA. He'll never know I did his Q-tip impression. And it ended up being on ABC News nationally. They covered the Comedy Store that night. And I called Bob and I said, "Bob, I'm really sorry I stole your Q-tip joke. And it aired on national television. But you can have any one of my cerebral palsy jokes. Just take any of them." Actually, I never stole again. That taught me a lesson, not to steal other comedians' jokes.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were just kind of just doing it for fun, and they just happened to catch it and put it on TV. Oh, that's really funny. Early on, you mentioned you didn't want to be, your aspirations weren't to be necessarily a stand-up comic, but an actress. And Carol Burnett was your idol, and there was some cool stories about how you were a pen pal with Carol Burnett, and then you eventually met her. It's pretty cool. She is the greatest.
She is. She really is. I mean, she wrote me back every letter. I started writing her when I was 12 or 13, and she always wrote me back. And I told her I wanted to be like her when I grew up. And she always said, get into acting in every capacity. She said, there's no guarantee that you'll become pro. There's no guarantees in life, period, but you'll never know what you can do unless you try. To write a letter like that to a little kid, 13 with CP, is very powerful. I mean, rehab counselors and saying, "Oh, Geri, that's not realistic. You need to pick a friendly cerebral palsy job, something that people with cerebral palsy can do." And Carol never treated me that way. From day one, she treated me just like any other aspirations of a child wanting to grow up to be a comic.
You are the role model to show that nothing can hold you back. If you push through, you can do it. So that is really cool. That's really awesome that Carol Burnett, it's interesting. Like she never had to write you back. She never had to do that. She did, and just those moments where you can touch somebody and change their lives in just a simple way. I mean, what did it take her? 5 minutes to write the letter or something like that or whatever? And it was and it had such an impact on you. It's just shows you how much you can change the world.
I'll tell you something really embarrassing is that, now remember, I was 13. Come on, and give me a break. She sent me an autographed picture, and I accidentally dropped it in the toilet. Don't ask. And I had the nerve to write her again, "Dear Carol Burnett, I accidentally dropped your picture in the toilet. Can you send me another one? And she did.
Carol Burnett is an angel. Anyone listening to this that didn't love Carol Burnett a million times before loves her a million times now. That is just, she's so wonderful. It's so great that she had such an early impact on you and that she was willing, and she had enough postage to send you another autograph. That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
I mean, most people wouldn't admit that they dropped their picture in the toilet. Not me.
I mean, you could have made up a different story. All right, we'll leave the rest of that story to the imagination. So it's safe to say that like one of the other pivotal moments in your life that was life-changing was meeting Norman Lear.
Oh, yes. I started doing stand-up in 78, and in 1980, Fern Field had heard about me, and she was producing the second annual Media Access Awards, which is an award show for including people with disabilities in the industry. And she asked me to perform for that event. And that particular night, Norman Lear was there, even Charlotte Ray was there. They were sitting together. And Norman came up. I got a standing ovation, thank God. And Norman came up to me after the show and he said, "You know, you're really funny, kid, but you're way before your time." I said, so wait a couple months. And he did actually wait a couple months and cast me as Blair's cousin on The Fact of Life. So it was amazing. I mean, my first episode of Fact of Life aired on Christmas Eve in 1980.
I mean, that's amazing to meet Norman Lear and then so the first season then I'm guessing, because you came in, Cousin Jerry's in the second season. So I'm guessing the first season was happening. And then when he saw you, and he's sitting there with Charlotte Ray, maybe they came up with the idea for your character. I mean, I'm guessing they hadn't written a cousin with CP by coincidence.
They would have cast me as one of the students, which would have been very powerful to have a student with a disability in a private school. And I looked young enough. Even though I was 23, I looked 15, 16. I looked a lot younger than my real age. But they couldn't because they had just cut the cast. Remember all the girls?
Yeah, like Molly Ringwald was on it. There was a ton of people.
Yeah. And they just hired Nancy McKeon before me, too. So what are we going to do with Jerry? And Norman Lear came up with the idea to cast me as Blair's cousin, which was brilliant because it humanized Blair. It showed her vulnerability and her love, which really wasn't expressed until that point.
Right. Yeah, you gave her a different...
Exactly. And interesting, Lisa and I became very close friends, and we were roommates for a year. In fact, I just saw her last week. We're still friends to this day.
I think I just read something in Entertainment Weekly or something that you just literally got together not too long ago. At least I think, right? Was there like a little mini reunion not too long ago?
Yeah, we had a wonderful time. It was a great reunion. I hadn't seen her in a while. And she's the same Lisa I always... She grew up a little bit. So did I. I'm grayer.
I know everyone else was a bit younger than you on the show. So did that make it harder to connect with the folks just in terms of hanging out?
Well, of course. I think Nancy McKeon was 16, Kim Fields was 15, and Mindy Kahn was 15. So there was 23 and 16 is a big difference. Lisa, on the other hand, was 17, and she turned 18 the following year. So we were closer chronologically. So we did a lot of fun things together. We went to movies and went out to dinner and really we had a solid friendship.
Right. And I read in your book, you talk about how you moved in together, you were roommates. It's great that the bonds that you make. They say TV families forever.
Yeah.
So did you have to audition then for the Facts of Life, or did...
No, remember, Norman Lear was in the audience.
I'm saying, so they Norman wrote this character for you and said, Geri Jewell is Cousin Geri.
He wrote the idea. Joel Kimmel and Gibbs actually wrote the script. And they used a lot of my stand-up comedy lines in the actual first episode. They owe me for that.
Yeah, that makes you a writer for the show, right? They used your famous T-shirt.
Yes, yeah, that was interesting because I developed a T-shirt. I made a T-shirt early on that said, "I don't have cerebral palsy, I'm drunk," which is the opposite of what you would think. And I wore it every single time I did comedy. So it had body odor, it had coffee stains, it had everything on it you could imagine, but I was so broke, I couldn't afford 2 T-shirts. to wash one and wear the other. I was wearing that dirty T-shirt. So then when Facts of Life came along, Wardrobe bought me some new T-shirts to wear on the show. The T-shirt was hysterical. And when I got the T-shirt, I realized that my own T-shirt, I spelled cerebral palsy wrong. They spelled it right. I mean, I had cerebral palsy for 23 years and didn't know how to spell it. You don't put an E in palsy.
I would have guessed that you dropped the R from cerebral. Sometimes I say cerebral. No, I don't say that. It's cerebral. Like it sounds faster without the R. Like I had to look up how to spell it too.
I mean, people pronounce it cerebral or cerebral. I don't care. It's palsy anyway, no matter how you pronounce cerebral.
Right. E or no E. It's like.
And then at Christmas time, I have Bell's palsy. No, I'm kidding.
Wait, what was the joke you made on the show? Oh, if you had polio, the shirt would have been cheaper because they charged by the letter.
Yeah. And it would have been cheaper if I knew how to spell cerebral palsy. I could have saved 30 cents.
We'll do a GoFundMe. We'll get you back that 30 cents after this episode. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to go set up that GoFundMe real quick. I do want to thank everyone for their support of the sponsors. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my conversation with Geri Jewell. Was there a potential spinoff? Did you mention that in your book? Like they had considered a...
They considered a spinoff, and it was going to be called, I think it was going to be called Here's Geri. And it never materialized. There was a lot of negativity swirling around me at that time. And I wasn't mature enough, savvy enough, or experienced enough to know what to do with it all. I mean, my manager embezzled all my money from Facts of Life. He went to prison, but I didn't put him there. I was low man on the totem pole. I mean, when he went to prison, he left me $25 in the bank.
That's horrible.
That's it. And the problem is that I didn't have someone to really look over me. In other words, you hire a manager to protect you and to guide you and to help you. And mine did the opposite. It's common in Hollywood for people to take advantage of people. I mean, it happens all the time. It's an old story. But I think the reason why I was because a lot of people do not separate the intellectual from the body. If I move this way, they think, oh, she must be really stupid. And a lot of people just took advantage of me royally. But I'm still here.
You're still here. You're still here. You're still rocking. I'm sorry that happened. Did your manager screw over anyone else? Were there other people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he went to prison, I think, for 3 years for other embezzlements and that he did.
Oh, it's so horrible.
He was not a good man.
That's horrible. Yeah, because when I was reading that part of the story where you're like, the Facts of Life people gave you a check for $45, and you're like, 40, what is it, $45? And you had taken advances on your salary without you even knowing it. It was heartbreaking. I'm so sorry that happened.
Thank you. But I don't regret any of the negative things that have happened to me because it's part of who I am today. It made me stronger. I spent most of my life in special ed. The first 15 years of my life were very sheltered. And I think that's why I look so young at 43, because I was in special ed so long. They kept me young, 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 young. You're a little girl with cerebral palsy. Yeah. So in a way, the harshness of reality of life kind of broke through that special ed shell, allowing me to grow up, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally does. Whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about a happy thing. Get off the manager for a second. Leave that behind. I mean, Facts of Life is awesome. Deadwood is awesome. We'll talk about that in a second. Love Deadwood. But I want to talk about the time you went to Sesame Street. Because that to me is the greatest. I mean, to be able to hang out with Big Bird and the Muppets and like the Sesame Street gang, like to me, that's the cool. Like that would be the coolest thing ever.
Well, it was 1984, and my new manager got me this gig at Sesame Street, not the one sitting in prison. And they asked me if I had a skill that kids could relate to, because, stand-up comedy, you can't do that 4-year-olds. They won't get it. And truthfully, looking back, I think I told them, and God, you're jogging all these memories. I told them 2 things. I told them I can play Space Invaders, Miss Pac-Man.
Classics, the best games ever. Okay.
And I can roller skate. And the minute I said roller skate, I was like, oh my God, not only do I have cerebral palsy, I have mental health issues. I mean, I did learn how to skate as a kid. In fact, one Christmas I got shoe skates from my parents. But I never learned how to stop. I never,
You can go, you just can't stop.
Yeah, I just go and hopefully there would be a tree or a wall or something.
Or an uphill. Yeah.
Carol Burnett, the puppeteer inside Deadwood. Deadwood, not Deadwood. Inside Big Bird. He was very excited that I knew how to skate because that was one of the skills he knew how to do as Big Bird, put skates on Big Bird. So they flew me to New York. We did a dress rehearsal the night before, but they forgot my skate. So I just walked with Big Bird, didn't skate with him, just walked to my marks and said my lines. The next day, in front of the live audience, they bought me the skate. They put them on backstage. They opened the curtain. They got my cue. And they said, go to your mark. You remember where you went last night. Go. I came out on that stage going so fast. I mean, it was a matter of seconds. And it was like, oh my God, I forgot I don't know how to stop either. I'm going to kick the camera, which is going to be pricey, or I'm going to flip over the railing and land on these 4-year-olds and their parents, and that could be messy. I thought that by leaning my weight and aiming towards Big Bird was the safest thing I could do because he's big and he's soft and he has feathers. I hit Big Bird so hard, his head fell off and it rolled across the stage. And these 4-year-olds were screaming that I killed them. And, they were so traumatized. I think a few of them are probably still in therapy. And Carol Spinney and I became very close friends after that. And he said, "You are the only celebrity guest that I've ever had that decapitated me."
Oh my God, that is amazing. Do they have that on tape? Oh my goodness. Oh, that is really funny. So was it cool just being on Sesame Street though? I mean, I mean, there's probably cool as an actor, you get to do a lot of cool things. Like you went to the Carol Burnett show taping, right? You've performed in front of Norman Lear. Like you've done some really awesome things. Did any of them beat being on Sesame Street? Like for real, I'm being for real. To me, that would be like the top. Like I did Sesame Street. Oh yeah, I also met Norman Lear once. You know what I mean?
I've been very blessed. I've had an incredible career. I mean, I even did an episode of Glee. I did one episode of Alcatraz, which you may not even heard of. It was supposed to be a reoccurring role, but it only lasted one season.
I don't think I ever saw Alcatraz. I did know about Glee. You were on the new Lassie. You wrote an episode of 21 Jump Street. Tell me about Lassie. Hanging out. You hung out with Big Bird and Lassie. I mean,
Well, I think Lassie's owners saw Sesame Street and knew what I did to Big Bird because they were very protective of Lassie.
they taped his head down. So
But it was actually it was one of the producers of Facts of Life that cast me on the New Adventures of Lassie. It was Al Burton, and I needed work desperately, and he automatically thought of Lassie because that was one of the shows that he was producing, and it was a nice little episode. I played a doctor.
that's awesome. That is really, really cool. And then you wrote an episode of 21 Jump Street.
Yeah, I wrote treatment, not the script.
Right. It was your idea. You came up with the plot.
Yeah, I wrote the treatment and I sold it. It was a wonderful experience. I loved working with Peter DeLuise. He was such a sweetheart. And there was one, now I don't have that problem so much, but my hearing aids used to whistle whenever I spoke. And they had to really do some heavy duty mold to stop that because of the cerebral palsy. And so I couldn't wear my hearing aids filming because they would whistle every time I said a line. So I put them in my pocket and did the scene. And then out of the blue, Peter says, "And who in the hell has a teapot phone?" I didn't realize that my hearing aids were on the whole time in my pocket because I'm hearing impaired. What do I? It must be my hearing aids in my pocket.
Oh, that is so funny. Oh, and you know what? You saying hearing impaired reminded me, I wanted to bring it up earlier with the stand-up comedy where you got rave reviews of how confident you were on stage ignoring the hecklers. And you were like, I didn't even hear the hecklers.
I know. I don't hear hecklers. And that could be a plus or a minus depending upon.
Oh, I think it's a plus.
I mean, I could never come back with a witty remark if somebody's heckling me because I can't hear what they said originally. So sometimes I came across as being very confident. Oh, she ignores her hecklers. Most comedians can't do that.
No, I thought that's exactly how I took it. I was like, when I talk to people about stand-up comedy, one of the things I always say to them, I go, it's 99% confidence. Like, I mean, material, everything's important, but when you're up there, it's confidence, can make or break you. And so when I read that, and I was like, oh, that's how they interpreted it. They didn't know you couldn't hear them. They just thought you were so confident in your act that you just ignored them. And then that probably made them react to you even better because they're like, because, right, the more kahunas you show on that stage, they just will come to you, right? And they'll buy into you. And I thought that was great. I thought it was great, actually.
It was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it's a blessing in disguise. So, okay, so you're in line at a pharmacy, and then you meet bump into David Milch leads you to Deadwood. This leads you to Deadwood. So it's like, it just seems like every time you randomly meet someone, you end up getting a TV show.
You know, it was surreal again. I firmly believe that if we get out of our own way, we will be okay. Because I'm guided all the time. I mean, what are the odds of me running into David Milch at a pharmacy? And he was in line and he turned around. He said, "Oh my God, Geri Jewell." And I didn't know who he was at the time. And I was not having a good day. I was in a lot of pain. I was there to pick up Botox because I get 3 vials of Botox injected in my neck for chronic pain. And he said, "I've been a huge fan of yours. I love your sense of humor. You inspire me. But I haven't seen you on TV in a long time. What do you do with your life?" I said, "Botox." And he said, "No, seriously." And I said, "Seriously, Botox." And he said, "You want a television series?" And this is a pharmacy. It's not nice to play with someone's mind in a pharmacy. And he said, "In case you don't recognize me, my name is David Milch, the executive producer of NYPD Blue." He said, "Yep, that's me." And I said, "Well, Mr. Milch, I'm flattered that you believe in me and you wanna hire me, but let's get real. I would make a real shitty cop." Said, "No, I just signed a contract with HBO. I'm doing a new Western called Deadwood. You want to do a Western?" And I looked up as far as my titanium neck would let me. And I said, "God, you have a quirky sense of humor." I mean, I'm standing here with cerebral palsy, horrendous pain, dependent on Botox, the titanium neck, and David Milch wants me to ride a horse.
That is funny.
He asked the pharmacist for a sheet of paper. He gave him a prescription pad for an antidepressant, and he wrote his phone number. And I was the first person ever to be cast on Deadwood, even before Ian McShane. I was David's first choice.
That is amazing. The role of Jewel, and then you were Geri on Facts of Life.
I know. Now I have to find a show with my middle name.
Was Deadwood just amazing to work on? I mean, like a period piece, was it enjoyable? Like in the actors, I mean, just any stories pop out? Like anything as cool as being with Big Bird?
It was absolutely incredible. The reason I have a titanium neck now is because I broke my neck in '99. So I thought that my career was over at that point. I didn't think I'd ever work again. But no, the universe had other ideas. No, you're going to work again whether you like it or not. And it was amazing. I mean, Ian McShane was my buddy. I mean, he was so sweet, so kind, if you can imagine. He's just a sweetheart. And I remember all the scenes we had, he treated me horrible, the character. And every time the director would yell, "Pat," he would come over and hug me and say, "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry." I said, "Ian, it's okay. It's acting. Don't worry about it."
What is it with actors that can be such assholes on screen, but they're the nicest people in the world? Isn't it?
You know what? Lisa was not a snob or stuck up or any of that, but the character was. And I think if you're the opposite, you're going to play the opposite even better, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. It does. So Deadwood's amazing. So do you ever do Comic-Cons or like the signing shows or anything like that?
Yeah, I've done a few. I'll probably end up doing a little bit more now.
I always try to think like I would have to always go with Cousin Jerry as the 8x10 I would have you sign. I was like, you balance like where in your head, because that's where you embossed yourself in my head. You know what I mean? Like the awesome things you did later. I mean, you know what I mean? So that's what I would pick. I always like try and think, because that to me is like the biggest thing when you go to a Comic-Con and you see all those photos there, is like, which one do you pick? Because so anyway, Cousin Jerry is the one I would pick. And then you almost did a sitcom with Sid Caesar.
Yeah, that was amazing. Ed Simmons wrote that treatment, and I spent 3 months with Sid Caesar trying to sell that series. And at that time, there was no, there was just ABC, CBS, and NBC. That's it. And all three networks rejected it. And years later, I showed the script to Norman Lear, and Norman read it, and he was like, why didn't you guys pitch it to me? I would have sold it. And I think the reason being was because Ed was Norman Lear's old writing partner from the 50s. They had a bond. And I think he was trying to compete with Norman in a way. I'll show you. I'll make Jerry a star with Sid Caesar. I think that's the only reason he didn't go to Norman, was he wanted to prove to Norman that he could do it too.
Interesting. All right. Well, what could have been? So, all right. So you have your autobiography that you wrote, I'm Walking as Straight as I Can, but now you have a brand new book, Geri's Jewels and Gems.
Yes.
What inspired you to write this new series, pull together these new series of essays and stories with a foreword by Norman Lear, by the way?
Well, 2020 came along and there was COVID and the country was very troubled and it's still in trouble. I thought, what can I do to inspire and to make people laugh and to add lightness to the world without having to go out there and actually get on stage and do stand-up, because that's how I did it originally. And then I thought about all the articles that I wrote for Ability Magazine, and they asked me to write for them after my book came out. They were so impressed with my writing and Walking as Straight as I Can that they asked me to write columns for Ability Magazine. So I called Chuck Cooper, who was the editor, and I asked him if it was okay if I used my columns in a coffee table book. And he said, well, yeah, as long as you give Ability Magazine credit. And of course I'm going to do that. And the publisher, who is a dear friend of mine, Dr. Randall Bell, we were discussing titles, and he wanted to call it Geri's Jewels. And I said, no, because then it sounds like a sex book. And he said, yeah, but it probably sell more. I said, no, I'm not calling it Geri's Jewels, but I will call it Geri's Jewels and Gems. That's how that title came. The gems are photos that I personally picked for my book, and the jewels are the columns. And I needed someone to write the foreword. So I called Norman and I asked him if he would like to read my book, my newest book. And he goes, bring it over, come on over to the house. So I went over there and I said, Norman, I know you're really busy and I know you have a lot on your plate. I mean, he's 101 years old, mind you. At that time, he was 101. And I said, but could you write the foreword for my book? It's a coffee table book. And he said, well, what if they don't have a coffee table? Then what? And I said, well, they can put it somewhere else.
Coffee bar, it's just a suggestion. The coffee table is just a suggestion.
He said, of course I'll write the foreword. And 2 weeks later, he delivered.
That is wonderful. That you guys even stayed connected after all those years. That's really nice. That
Norman and I were very close. We talked regularly. He FaceTimed with me all the time. He used to call me out of the blue just to see how I was doing. That is so rare. Geri, it's Norman. Where are you? I just called to check up on you. I mean, he was kind of a surrogate dad to me up until the very end.
I love hearing that. That's so amazing. So there's a lot of great articles and gems and jewels in the book. The one thing that I'll leave everyone on this. There's a great Juror 999 story, and there's a whole dissertation on gum that I didn't even know I needed, but was so true. It was like, but the greatest thing was in the photos. If you're older, which I'm older, so I lived through this type where there used to be the Halloween costumes where it was a box, and then it would have like the mask and like this crazy like plastic thing that you would put on. And, you know, I was probably at some point Darth Vader, or maybe C-3PO or something. But you have a photo where at some point somebody made a Facts of Life Cousin Geri Halloween costume, 1992. But the best part about it was voted one of the worst 100 costumes in history. Funniest thing I ever read.
Actually, the face of that costume looks more like Christy McNichol than me.
Maybe there was a Christy McNichol version, you know, like Star of Family or whatever.
And they spelled it with a J, not a G. But the reason they used J was because if they used G, NBC could have sued them.
Ah.
So they changed the one letter.
Amazing. Geri, with a G, you are amazing. I really enjoyed spending this time with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, likewise. Thank you, Jeff.
This was wonderful. So awesome. All right, everyone, get Geri's Jewels and Gems. Also, check out Geri's book, I'm Walking as Straight as I Can. Combination of those is so much Geri. You're going to love it. Lots of great stories. So much goodness in both those. I really enjoyed reading them both. Geri Jewell, thank you.
See you later. Bye, Jeff. Thank you.
All right. How amazing was Geri Jewell? Such an inspiration. Definitely check out her books. I'll put links in the show notes. I'm sure you've all seen Facts of Life, but if you haven't seen Deadwood, it's on HBO. That's amazing as well. A lot of goodness out there. And there's clips of that Sesame Street stuff we talked about. That's all on YouTube. I'll try and find that. I'll put that in the show notes also. Anyway, it was so great talking to Geri. Kind of flew by. I can't believe it. The interview's over. The episode's over. Another huge thank you to Geri Jewell for hanging out with me. And, of course, another huge thank you to all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.